Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wa sallallahu Sayyid Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa salam. Welcome to this lesson, inshallah. As the title says, it's Ismail or Ishaq or Ishmael Isaac who was the sacrifice. So there's been two opinions on who it was amongst Muslim scholars, and I'm going to be showing, inshallah, with decisive proofs that actually it was Ismail, which is the opinion that most scholars hold today. So the opinion that it was Ishaq was an early opinion taken up by most classical scholars, and the reason is one main reason for this, and that was because they held the opinions and the sources of Ahlul Kitaab in high regard. So they took them as truth, and then they tried to in a way to get the Quran to conform to that opinion. And they've been through history different opinions, different proofs. Now, what I'll do in this lesson, inshallah, show decisive proof that it was Ismail alayhi salam. Okay, we start off from Surah As-Saffat. So this is the dua that Ibrahim makes. Rabbi Habli min as-salihin. O my Lord, grant me a child from the righteous. فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِغُلَامٍ حَلِيمٍ. And then we gave him glad tidings of a forbearing boy. Now, a few things to note about this. Here there was an immediate response. Ibrahim a.s. made the dua. Then following this, there was the good news of a child. Now that's important because the other child was actually, there was good news given for the other child, but in a different way. That's one of the proofs. We'll explain this in more detail. That's one of the proofs that actually this was talking about Ismail alayhi salam. And here there's the sifa Halim, Ghulamin Halim. With Ishaq, the Quran mentions it twice. Ghulamin Alim, a knowledgeable child. Here it's Halim, forbearing. So there's a difference there. But one could say, well, it could refer to the same person. So let's just, for argument's sake, say it could be. That's not decisive proof. But as I said, the glad tidings given for Ishaq is mentioned in other places in the Quran. One of them is the following. فَبَشَّرْنَاهَا, meaning the wife of Ibrahim. فَبَشَّرْنَاهَا بِإِسْحَاقَ وَمِنْ وَرَاءِ إِسْحَاقَ يَعْقُوبَ. So we gave her good tidings of Ishaq, and then after Ishaq, Yaqub. So there was good tidings of not only her son to be, but his son. So her grandson as well. So one of the points is that if he was to have a son, and if he wasn't married, he didn't have any progeny, then it would not be much of a test to have this son be slaughtered as a test. And that's why some scholars actually, what they say is that he was actually already married and he had a son. But that actually leads to other problems, which we'll discuss later on, inshallah. Now, if you go further on, we find the age where Ibrahim AS informs his son, which was فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ. The way it's translated is when he reached with him the age of exertion. It's not a good translation. A better translation would be when he reached the age where he was able to help his father in his day-to-day duties. That's the age, and that's supported by the tafasir that I've read. So, and it says here, بَلَغَ مَعَهُ, with him, meaning with Ibrahim, as-sa'ya. As-sa'ya is work and duties. So when he was able to help him. And scholars give different ages, an age for that. But, I mean, when can a son help his father or start helping him? Maybe about 12, 13 years of age. And remember, this was at the point where he was able to do this. So prior to that, he was not able to do that. He was not able to help him. Now, to be a father or a husband, you need to carry out duties. So you wouldn't expect him to have married and had kids prior to this age, because he would probably not have been able to fulfill his duties as a husband. So that would indicate that he was not married and he did not have a child, and he would have to be very young. So it doesn't fit into this with this ayah that actually he was married. It was when he reached the actual age where he was able to help his father. That's when قال. This is when Ibrahim said, قال يا بني إني أرى في المنام أني أذبحك. So he saw in his dream, إني أرى. Interesting here, the verb أرى is used. It's a present tense, as opposed to something in the past. Like, for example, Nabi Yusuf, where he says, إني رأيت أحد عشر كوكبا. I saw in a dream that the 11 stars and the moon and the sun prostrating to me. So here he had the dream, Yusuf Islam, he had the dream, and he's mentioning to his father. In this case, what's happening is he says that inni ara fil manami, that I am seeing this over and over again. He saw it more than once. And he only told him when he reached this particular age. Now the Quran doesn't, when it talks about age, it doesn't mention, a number, 10 years, 11. It could have mentioned it, but it's mentioning it in a more natural way. So for each person, it's different. The age where this happens is different. So, but one can get an idea of when it occurs. فلما بلغ معه السعي إني أرى في المنام أني أذبحك. I see in my dream that I am slaughtering you. أذبحك, also the مضارع. So he sees him in the process of slaughtering him. It wasn't سأذبحك, and we'll speak about this inshallah in another lesson, the linguistic nuances and how some opinions actually contradict the ayat in the Quran. It wasn't سوف أذبحك, it was إني أذبحك, I am slaughtering you. So there's actually slaughtering going on, cutting. Now with this age, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ, that was, as I said, about 12, 13. Now if we go to, for example, Surah Yusuf, again, here it says, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ. So here, ashudda, it's talking about having strength. The translation here, when he reached maturity. A better translation would be when he reached complete maturity and strength, both strength-wise, physically, and intellectually. So he was a man. And this is when the fitna of Imratul Aziz, she wanted to seduce him, happened. Okay? So here, maybe the age would be maybe 15, 16 years of age. Possibly. So, more than فَلَمَا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ. If we go through these ayat and then go further down, we actually come across another glad tiding, bishara, that is given to Ibrahim. 102. If we go down to ayah 112, وَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِإِسْحَاقَ نَبِيًّا مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. So we gave him glad tidings of Ishaq from amongst the righteous. And notice here, he mentions his name, Ishaq. So the question is, why wasn't Ishaq mentioned, his name mentioned in the beginning? Why wasn't actually mentioned by name before? So for example, Ibrahim AS spoke to him, says, I see my dream, and he goes to try and slaughter him, and so on. And there's no mention of who it was. And then, وَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِإِسْحَاقَ. And then we get glad tidings of Ishaq, نَبِيًّا مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And notice here there's no mention of what happened before this glad tiding. It's different from the other one. The other one was based on a dua, and it was the glad tidings came straight after the dua. In this case, it was just وَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِإِسْحَاقَ نَبِيًّا مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. The thing is, why would there be two glad tidings for the same son? That doesn't make much sense. Now I know that's not decisive proof, but still, all these proofs together indicate that it wasn't Ishaq, it was actually Ismail. And there is, you could say, weakness in the fact that he's not mentioned initially and he's mentioned again but by name. Most likely they're talking about two different sons. Last point that I want to mention. Now, prior to being given the glad tidings, it says وَقَالَ إِنِّي ذَاهِبٌ إِلَى رَبِّي سَيَهْدِينَ. And prior to it was talking about the people of Ibrahim and how he left them. They wanted to harm him, they tried to burn him, and he left them at the end. So this is talking about his hijrah. And that's when it says وَقَالَ إِنِّي ذَاهِبٌ إِلَى رَبِّي سَيَهْدِينَ رَبِّي هَبْ لِي مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِغُلَامٍ حَلِيمٍ. So this would indicate actually that this happened after he left his people. So he was quite young when he left. On the other hand, when it speaks of the bishara or the glad tidings of Ishaq alayhi salam, look what it mentions. This is from the wife of Ibrahim. وَأَنَا عَجُوزٌ وَهَذَا بَعْلِي شَيْخًا. I'm an old woman, and this is my husband who is an old man. So it seems like that the age, the gap between when the glad tidings of Ismail came and the glad tidings of Ishaq came there was a big, many, maybe even decades between them. The fact that they were big or large in their age, that they were quite old. So scholars give a difference of maybe 10-15 years between Ishaq and Ismail, but possibly from these ayat it could be even bigger. Allahu Alam. Okay, so that's some of the proofs. There could be more proofs out there in the Quran. Maybe I've missed some. If I have, please, I'd like to hear what you say. But I'm quite convinced that it was Ismail, and the Quran is quite clear on a number of these points. And that completes the lesson. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.